During a blackout, a stranger appeared in a gas station without the clerk ever heard the entrance team. He called the 19-year-old clerk by name, then gave an explanation that seemed completely normal until the sunrise proved it impossible. I'm Hachi. Tonight we're reading 3 Reddit no sleep stories. Let's get into the first stories. When I was 19, I worked the overnight shift at a gas station just on the outskirts of my town. From 10 at night to 6:30 in the morning, I would be left alone on my own devices. The gas station was located on a long stretch of the road that was pretty busy during the day, but usually not as traveled during the night. I would get an average of about dozen or so people who would pop in to grab candy, coffee, or to fill up their tanks. Most of the time, I would just be on my phone, occasionally getting up to fulfill my duties around the store. I remember that night like it was yesterday. I had already been running late. My car had trouble starting up, but my dad was able to get it up and running. The wind was blowing something terrible. The sky had turned gray, and I could smell it in the air. It was about to storm. I didn't mind it. This meant that my night would be even more uneventful than usual. Or so I thought. I have to swerve to avoid hitting the deer that has suddenly emerged from the tree line on the side of the road. Swearing under my breath as my heart pounded, I gazed up into my rear view mirror. The deer was watching me drive away. My coworker, an older woman named Beth, tried to pretend not to be annoyed once I finally got there. I apologized profusely, but she said her goodbyes and headed out. I inspected the 4 pumps we had outside, making it back inside just in time to avoid the rain. As the thunder boomed overhead, I walked the store, making sure everything was properly stocked and the snack machines were running smoothly. Then I sat in my trusty 50 years old chair and pulled up YouTube. I had a few customers stop by, but the storm only seemed to be getting worse. And eventually the road was completely empty. I snapped out of my digital trace enough to grab a hot dog, but noticed that my phone was on its last breath. My charger, of course, was in the car, and I definitely wasn't going outside. I lowered my head under the counter, but one of my coworkers had taken the community charger. Perfect. The building seems to shake from the next round of thunder, and suddenly, the lights were out. I sat up, looked around for the flashlight. Instead, I found a dark figure standing in front of the counter. I gasped, falling back in my chair. Somehow this hunk of wood that has survived since the ice age finally splintered under the weight of my fall. I sprung up, staring in confusion and apprehensions at the person standing in front of me. He wore a black cloak, his hood raised, his face round and beard was barely visible. He was tall, and for the life of me I cannot tell how he had gotten in there without me noticing. I had not heard a jingle of the front door. And even if he had somehow bypassed that, I had only been below the counter for a second or two. What unnerved me the most, though, was that he seems to completely dry. There was no umbrella in sight. Sorry, you really scared me. What's up? He simply stood there, staring at me. I was now even more aware of my on life support cell phone, as, with the power out, I couldn't even hope to use the landline. The man's dark eyes shifted from me to the back of the store. You have drinks here? Yeah man, right back there. He stared for a few seconds longer, then moved swiftly toward the cooler. I wondered if I should make a run for it then, but something seems to telling me not to. I wasn't sure if it's because I thought he would easily chase me down, or if I was just trying to be rational. This guy was definitely weird, but why risk getting in trouble with my boss by abandoning the store and the cash register? I tapped my foot nervously as I sat waiting for him to return. When he did, he placed a small bottle of water on the counter. The storm outside rendered the dark store even darker. I could barely see anything around me. The man's eyes were boring into my face. You have any smokes? Yeah man, which one would you like? What do you recommend? I didn't want to turn around, so I just started to listing the brands that I knew. When I finished, he tilted his head slightly. You know those are bad for you. You shouldn't smoke, Derek. My heart skipped a beat. How do you know my name? Your name badge. I felt like an idiot. This weather and situation was making me irrational. I just need to calm down and take care of this guy. I reached for a scanner to ring the gentleman up and felt stupid for the second time as many seconds. The power was out. I couldn't ring him up anyway. The register useless. It's on the house, man. Have a good night. The stranger looked at the register, then back at me. He seems like he was trying to come up with some excuse not to leave. I wonder if he had been hoping I would open the register so that he could rob me. I'm not leaving, not yet. My stomach's tightened. I glaze at my phone, completely dead. I had this terrible feeling that I would be too. This guy hadn't done much yet. He wasn't loud, but dangerous, and something horrible seems to be lingering in this atmosphere. I had nowhere to go. I could try to fight him, but this guy was massive. Our staring match continued. There was a movement outside the glass door. I could see a white car pulling up to one of the pumps. I can tell you I have never felt so relieved in my life. Finally, someone else was here. I was safe. Two young men got out of the car, one of them in black shirts, the other red. I began jogging through the rain towards the building. The stranger in front of me turned, then moved faster than he had all night, walking swiftly over the door. He stood glaring outside at the boys, both of whom froze in their tracks. One of them screamed as the other turned to run. They slid and stumbled in the rain, and their complete and utter terror back to the car. They hopped in, and the third person, the driver, peeled out of the lot. What the hell was that? Did they know something about this guy that I didn't? Their reaction had been almost comical with how terrified they had seemed, even more than myself. The stranger turned back to look at me. My stomach dropped. There was no help. I was stuck here with this guy and completely at his mercy. He blinked for the first time all night, then cracked a smile. His teeth were surprisingly white, barely even. Have a great night, Derek. He pushed the door open and walked out. I didn't know whether I was more confused or relieved. I ran over to lock the door, only to see that the man was not outside. There was no car, and he wasn't walking in any directions. He seems to have just completely disappeared. The power came back on about 2 hours later. My nerves had finally reached to normal, and the rest of my shift passed without incidents. The early shift worker, Seth, pulled up at his usual time and shook my hand. Derek, man, I'm glad to see you are okay. Why wouldn't I be? I wonder aloud. You haven't got any updates on your phones? There were some guys who robbed and shot a gas station attendant a few miles from here. I thought the boss man shot you a text or called you. Maybe he did. My phone dead. What, wh- what did these guys look like? Seth scratched his chin. If I remember correctly, they were in white Toyota. Two young guys and a driver too. My face had surely rained old color the way Seth looked at me. What? This didn't make sense. I had nearly been a victim of these guys. But if they had a gun, what had terrified them so about the stranger in a cloak? What had they actually seen through those doors? I left the building, splashing through the puddles to get to my car. I sat there in the driver's seat for seconds, just staring into space. Then I turned to look for my charger. It was there in the passenger seat, right next to my name badge. We all have the same question. Who's the guy in the cloak? And how did he know Derek's name? That's so weird. But I for sure think one of the motive he came there just to save Derek from those shooters. The man in the cloak refused to left the store before the three shooter came. And after that, he just like, all right, I'm done. Bye, Derek. Take care. And then poof, maybe it could be God. Maybe it could be his ancestor come back to save him. Who knows? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment. Now, let's get into story 2. In 1997, I quit my career as an officer. This is why. In the winter of 1996, I was 25 years old and had been working as an officer for 5 years in a small town east of Saginaw, Michigan. The winter that year was rough, and most things in the town were closed for a few days. As we shoveled the snow out of the road, we had our fair share of dumb 911 calls. Drunk people, a car crash, those sorts of things. One night at around 11 p.m., we got a call about a possible home intruder, but the house address was a few minutes out of town in a cornfield. And with the snow on the roads not fully blown away, it took even longer to get there. It took me 20 minutes to drive from the station to the farmhouse. I parked my cruiser and stepped out, keeping my hand ready by my holster, my other hands grabbing the flashlight from my coat pocket. From the streets, the house looked entirely normal. The lights upstairs were off, but a small bit of light was visible through the glass of the front door. I kept my head down, partially in the collar of my thick jacket, to keep the freezing wind from my face. But as I looked down and turned my flashlight on, I saw long bare footprints in the snow. I froze briefly. What the? My tire tracks had obscured some of them, but I followed the remain and they seemed to go to the field to the right of my cruiser, across the streets, and into the house. I leaned back into my cruiser, grabbed the radio, and called in. Arrive at the scene, requesting assistance. Footprints in snow. I don't know what to make of it. Heading inside. I closed the door to my cruiser, drew my pistol, and followed beside the footprints towards the house. The front door was ajar but without signs of forced entry, like the intruder had simply walked in. I pushed open the door and stepped inside, but nothing looked wrong. The TV in the living room was left on, as was the kitchen lights. After finding nothing, I made my way upstairs. The top of the stair came a hallway. To the left was one door, and to the right were another two. The door on the left was wide open with lights off. The room was small and seems like a spare bedroom, furnished and organized but dusty and untouched. I turned to the other ends of the hall and stalked down it, keeping my footsteps as quiet as I could on the hardwood. I checked the closer door on my left, closed but unlocked. The mirror on the wall shone the flashlight back at me, and as I lowered it, I saw a counter and a sink, and then the toilet and shower beside it. The bathroom was short and narrow, between the spare bedroom to the left of it, and whatever waited for me beside the door to my right. I grabbed the doorknob and turned it slowly as I tried to push the door open, but it wouldn't budge. It felt like someone was leaning against the door, but not deliberately holding it shut. I pushed harder. Something shifted behind it, with a heavy thud, and the door slowly opened. A dark stain crossed the floor. The landline lay beside the collar, and one look told me the victim was beyond help. I stepped back, struggling to understand what I was seeing. Nausea hit me, and I stumbled into the bathroom. I stayed there only a few seconds before the heavy footstep raced past the open door. I forced myself up, grabbed my pistol and flashlight from the counter, and followed. By the time I reached the hallway, whatever had passed me was already heading downstairs. Halfway down, I heard a glass shatter. When I reached the living room, the back door has been broken open. Whatever had attacked the caller has escaped into the moonless winter night. A new trail crossed the floor toward the broken door. Beside it were footprints, but they no longer looked human. They were wider and paw-like, with round pads and claw-shaped point at the front. I stood frozen until I heard a distant siren. After one final look into the darkness, I returned to the porch and waved down the backup unit. I don't remember much of the rest of the night, mostly paperwork and reporting. But the last thing that has stuck with me after all these years is hearing two of my fellow officers mentioning the body of the victim had been taken. I stayed working there for a few months longer, but the weight of what I had seen and the fact nothing ever came of it, no answer, no investigation, like the entire thing had been swept under the rug, took a toll on me, and I ended up quitting by the spring of 1997. To be honest, man, this is a very scary experience. It would traumatize me if I endure situations. What scared me the most was the mystery behind the lost body. Now let's go to story number 3. Finally, the day is here. August 18th, our day. The day our entire group gets together and spends the whole weekend camping, grilling, and drinking. Always the same forest, the same spot, the same lake. Sarah, Peter, Amber, and I. We have been friends since childhood. I never thought we'd stay friends this long. When I was 10, my parents and I moved away, but I kept writing letters to my friends. Later, we started talking online, and we still kept meeting up. I continued even after high school and college. My thoughts are erupted when Sarah started waving at me from a distance as I pull up in my car. I get out, hug her, and then greet the rest of the group. I have no idea how happy I am to see you guys, I say with a smile. As always, we all put our phones into a box and turn them off. A few hours later, we're all sitting around the fire, slightly drunk. The tent stand behind us, and the smell of grilled chicken fills the air. Suddenly, a voice comes from nearby. Hey guys, aren't you forgetting something? We all turn toward the voice at the same time. A guy standing in front of us. He looks about our age. Blonde hair, blue eyes, average build. A face I don't recognize. He has a huge backpack and a huge grin on his face. It's me, Adam. Adam Gray. Adam? I ask, staring at him in confusion. Adam, when we were kids, we were promised we would play together forever. I don't want to sound offended, but it's been 25 years and none of you guys ever contacted me. No way, Peter says, scratching his head. I don't understand how we could have forgotten. What? Amber asks. There used to be 5 of us, he says. Remember? One day our parent came and told us Adam has moved away. I vaguely remember something like that, Sarah says. Me too, Amber added. I just keep staring at him in confusion. It's okay, Joe. We're only 5 years old back then. I understand that you forgot, Adam said with a sad smile. I could seriously slap myself. The entire group remembers him, except for me. Of course. How did you even know we would be here? Well, we moved back recently, and my mom mentioned that she would talk to your parents. Apparently, you guys going to be here today. Come, sit down, man, and tell us what new with you, Peter says. Well, I would rather hear what news with you guys. Then I will tell you all about what happened to me. We slowly start telling each other about our lives, interrupting one another and laughing. But I can't stop wondering why I can't remember this guy. And why doesn't he want to tell us anything about himself? I apologize and I say I need to relieve myself. Making sure nobody noticed, I grab my phone and walk away. I go a little farther than I intended because getting even a single bar of signal out here is nearly impossible. Finally, I manage to get a connection and frantically type Adam Gray into my phone. Several pages come up, but none of them are what I'm looking for. So I try searching for Adam Gray along with the name of the village where we would all live together back then. I quickly scan through it, my eyes jumping from one sentence to the next. 2 boys were kidnapped. Sadly, only one of them returned. The killer was arrested. Adam was only 5 years old. His friends suffered from severe shock and memory loss. I suddenly remember everything. That horrible night. Me, Adam, and the man who has taken us. We were both crying. The last thing Adam said to me was he wanted to go home, and I told him not to be afraid, that everything would be okay, and that we would play together again. Then the man raised a baseball bat. I remember screaming. A moment later, the police broke through the door. I lost memory from the shock. My friend's parents told them that Adam had moved away. The internet wasn't nearly as widespread back then. The newspaper were the last thing we would ever pay attention to as a children. The village was small, everyone looked out for each other. So when this tragedy happened, nobody talked about it in front of the children. When everything finally came back to me, I felt what I buried deep inside my mind for all these years. That horrible paralyzing fear. I grabbed my car keys, ran to the car, and drove away as fast as I could. I just wanted to get away, as fast and as far from that place as possible. When I got home, I locked the door and just sat there, shaking. I sat there for hours until my phone suddenly rang. Good evening, this is police. Am I speaking to Mr. Carter? I found out my friends were dead. A young couple walking near the lake had found them beside a tree. Police believed the deaths may have been internal. Although there were no signs that anyone else had been present, I still couldn't understand how all 3 of them could have died in the same place at the same time. I don't know if this will ever get posted. My internet isn't working. I have no signal. I've sent message asking several of my contacts for help. A message to my parents telling them I love them. And this story to Reddit. They all say the same thing. Sending. When I look at the clock, it's still 10 p.m. When I pull the curtain aside, I see them standing there. All of them. Sarah, Amber, Peter, and Adam. They're standing outside my window, smiling at me. They're waiting. And they know that eventually, I have to go outside. If you're reading this, either I escape or they're reaching me first. Either way, I needed to tell someone.